Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And thank you, Michael, for that kind introduction and the invitation to be here today with all of you. It's always great to be here in the city. You know, it's been a little over a year now since the governor appointed me as the 12th commissioner of the New York State Department of Transportation. And I have to tell you, it's been one heck of a ride. What a year it's been. One of the governor's top economic development priorities is to build today for a better tomorrow, to provide our children and our children's children with better economic opportunities and a healthy and sustainable environment. To implement this vision, the governor has made historic investments in transportation infrastructure, the cornerstone of his economic development blueprint for our state. New York is investing more today in modernizing transportation, new housing, and protecting the environment than any other period in our state's history. Underscoring this commitment is the $100 billion infrastructure investment plan unveiled as part of the governor's budget this past January and enacted this past April. The plan will ignite 250,000 construction jobs across the state and position New York to leverage investments being made around the globe. For example, road and bridge improvements currently being designed and constructed in this area will enable the region to handle increased freight volumes moved through the new wider and deeper Panama Canal. From Montauk to Niagara Falls, every region of our state will benefit from the new transportation capital plan and the unprecedented investment that we're making. So today I'd like to discuss the three pillars that help guide the Department of Transportation, and those are infrastructure investment, safety, and sustainability. So first, with infrastructure, this past April, the governor and the legislature leaders adopted the largest multi-year state transportation plan ever approved in New York State. The plan invests more than $55 billion in new transportation improvements, including $27.1 billion for the Department of Transportation and Thruway Authority programs, and $28 billion for the MTA. Specifically, the Department of Transportation's five-year capital plan includes $21.1 billion for funding to improve highway, bridge, rail, port, airport, downstate suburban, and upstate transit infrastructure. In addition to authorizing the first long-term capital plan for the department in more than a decade, the new plan also realigns the capital planning and programming processes for the state's major transportation agencies. New York's always been a leader in transportation and infrastructure investments, and that legacy continues with this commitment, a commitment that will drive growth and generate continued prosperity for generations to come. You know, back in the day, New York's economy and social growth was facilitated by its daring and its courage to think big. From construction of some of the nation's first railroads, to the Erie Canal, to the Brooklyn Bridge, to the New York City elevated subway lines, which was the predecessor to the interstate highway system, this state and this region has been a leader in the construction of multimodal transportation infrastructure. Infrastructure that transformed our state's economy into the global center for financial, insurance, real estate, and technology sectors. Now, however, New York's transportation infrastructure, much of which was built before or during the Eisenhower interstate era, is among some of the oldest and the most heavily utilized in the United States of America. The continued ability of people and goods to move through our state is dependent on a well-functioning transportation system. And for far too long, the repair, rehabilitation, and replacement of this infrastructure was taken for granted. Our state's economic competitiveness suffered as a result of that. This decline, driven largely by the uncertainty of funding from Washington, coincided with the completion of the federal Eisenhower interstate system. And then the nation stopped investing in growing our transportation system. At the same time, state government forgot what it meant to think big and bold and brave. I believe that we lost our vision. The world-class transportation system that allowed the births of communities such as Levittown are now seeing their future being constrained by congestion and the unreliability of that very transportation system. Our forefathers clearly understood the importance of undertaking transformative projects that shaped our national and regional economy, projects that solidified New York's position as the Empire State, and thankfully today is a new day. In less than a year's time, we have seen the enactment of the first long-term federal and state transportation bills in more than a decade. We're collectively investing more today in highways, transit, rail, airports, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities than at any other time in our state's history. We're paying forward what our forefathers did for our generation. But there should be no mistake that because of the governor's leadership, New York has definitely regained its mojo. Our state is leading the way nationally by investing in its infrastructure. We've reignited the passion to construct the unconstructible. Projects that used to take 5 years to deliver are largely now being constructed in 18 months to 2 years. And at the same time, we're undertaking these projects while minimizing the inconvenience to the traveling public. Many of you are, of course, familiar with larger signature projects that are being undertaken by the state of New York, and some of these include the LaGuardia Airport Transformation Project. As you may recall, this past June, the governor and Vice President Biden presided over the groundbreaking of the new LaGuardia Airport. This public-private partnership, the nation's largest, represents the first complete rebuild of an airport in the United States in more than 2 decades. As the governor stated, LaGuardia is a key driver of New York's economy and transportation network, but for far too long, it has been outdated and overcrowded. This $4 billion redevelopment project will transform LaGuardia into a single, unified main terminal with expanded transportation access. By moving the terminal closer to the Grand Central Parkway, the project will increase airport taxiways by more than 2 miles and reduce airport ground delays. The Empire Station Complex is another landmark public-private partnership where approximately $3 billion will be invested to expedite and transform Penn Station, the James Farley Post Office, and surrounding area into a world-class transportation hub. This project will feature significant passenger improvements, including first-class amenities, natural light, increased train capacity, and decreased congestion. The new complex will also lay the foundation for an expansion further south, connecting to the new Amtrak Gateway project. Another example of building for the future is the expansion of the Long Island Railroad. I don't have to tell you that Long Islanders have one of the worst commutes in the country. Commuter rail service has been limited by the lack of track capacity for far too long. The third track will construct a new 9.8-mile-long third track between Floral Park and Hicksville that will run along and within the current right-of-way. Adding a third track would mitigate the bottleneck and reduce delays. In essence, this will represent the first major expansion of the railroad in 50 years. This expansion project will also complement the East Side Access Mega Project, which is doubling the railroad's capacity into Manhattan by building a new terminal underneath the Grand Central. These signature projects will transform the landscape in ways that we have never even imagined. But the story does not end there. There are literally thousands of smaller transportation projects around the state that will also help shape the future of our communities and allow each of the regions in the state to grow their own unique and diverse economies. The Department of Transportation's capital plan authorizes more than 2,500 new transportation projects, and each project has been developed in cooperation with local officials in villages, towns, cities, and counties across the state to improve the traveler's experience, to revitalize communities, and enhance the movement of commerce. Examples within this region of these smaller but important projects include extension of the Long Island Expressway HOV bus lane. This project will extend the existing LIE HOV bus lane operating in the morning peak period in the Manhattan-bound direction. The investment will decrease the severe congestion experienced by motorists on the westbound LIE in the morning peak hours. Over on the Bruckner Interchange, improvements between Wilkinson Avenue and the Hutchinson River Parkway in the Bronx will take place. This project will provide mobility movement and travel time savings to users on the northbound Bruckner between Wilkinson Avenue and the Hutchinson River Parkway exit ramp by reconfiguring the Pelham Parkway interchange and constructing an exit ramp from the northbound Hutchinson River Parkway to Bartow Avenue. The widening of the Walt Whitman Bridge Road in over 495 in Huntington. This project will accommodate the capacity needs generated by the new Canon USA North American headquarters. Canon's full employment build-out will result in more than 800 additional employees. The anticipated build-out at Canon is a noteworthy example of making strategic decisions and investments in the transportation system to accommodate and enhance economic growth. And if you've ever been on that bridge, you know what I mean. It's very narrow and very small, and it would not be able to handle the capacity of 800 new jobs. Reconfiguration of Route 32 at the Route 17 exit in Central Valley, Woodbury Commons Premium Outlet, plays an important role in job creation, tourism, and tax revenue, and I would bet that some of you here have been there. The resulting traffic, however, is constraining additional economic development opportunities and impacting regional freight goods movement. The project will reconfigure the interchange leading to the thruway that will better serve area commuters, shoppers, commerce, public schools, and really help ignite opportunities for further development. In addition, the new transportation plan provides unprecedented financial support for local governments to not only maintain, but to improve their roads and bridges. In addition to the $2.4 billion in funding provided under the Consolidated Local Streets and Highway Improvement Program, easier said as CHIPS, the plan provides an additional $1 billion over the next 5-year period in enhanced state assistance to local governments for the rehabilitation and reconstruction of local roads and bridges under our new Bridge New York and Pave New York programs. Collectively, this commitment to local roads and bridges represents the first new long-term dedicated support to local governments in more than a generation. Now, on the safety front, one of the primary functions of state government and the Department of Transportation is to ensure the safety of all its residents. It's a basic obligation of government. Each and every day, DOT plays an integral role in assessing the safety of the traveling public, from bridge inspections to signal traffic maintenance to winter snow and ice. And I'm from Syracuse, New York, and I know a little bit of something about winter snow and ice. Snow and ice control is one of the more challenging aspects of our mission due to the unpredictability and vitality of weather patterns. In fact, this past January, Winter Storm Jonas inundated parts of Long Island with more than 30 inches of snow, and the city was hit quite hard as well. The department is proud to have assisted local communities and governments respond and recover by deploying personnel and equipment from around the state to really help pitch in and address that storm. Last month, I joined Governor Cuomo in announcing the state's first ever comprehensive pedestrian safety plan. The New York State Pedestrian Safety Action Plan is a proactive, multi-agency initiative that provides more than $110 million for bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements across the state over the next 5 years. The plan takes a three-prong approach to improving safety during a campaign that will run through state fiscal year 2020. It's being implemented by the New York State Department of Transportation. We'll be focusing on engineering improvements. The State Department of Health will be conducting public education and awareness campaigns, and of course, the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee will be coordinating increased law enforcement. This plan targets improvements statewide, including many in this region, and here are just a few examples. About $10.5 million for signal improvements and the installation and improvement of crosswalks, sidewalk signs, pavement markings, and refuge islands in Nassau and Suffolk counties. $10 million will be spent to extend and widen concrete medians with refuge for bicyclists and pedestrians on Queen Boulevard from 74th Street to Elliott Avenue in Elmhurst. Little north of $7 million to reconfigure the intersection of Route 202 and the Palisades Interstate Parkway to improve traffic flow, enhance safety by reducing crashes. In addition, this past legislative session, the governor and the legislature also reached an agreement on significant legislation to fortify rail efforts across New York State. The legislation includes a series of provisions that will reduce the risk of train motor vehicle collisions at railroad crossings that are in close proximity to roadway intersections. The new provisions require every railroad corporation, municipality, or state agency having jurisdiction of a highway on which there is an at-grade crossing to conduct, at a minimum, biennial inspections of traffic control devices. This will help ensure that all interconnected crossing signals, regardless of ownership, are functioning as intended. In addition, the agreement imposes increased fines and new penalties on repeat offender drivers who continue to disobey the law and ignore important safety requirements. The state will also deploy new and innovative technologies to facilitate compliance with road crossing safety devices. These efforts include the integration of new pavement treatments, speech-based audible warning devices, and blackout signs. So by working cooperatively to educate, enforce, and deploy new and innovative technologies, no one, and I should say no one, should ever be injured or killed again in New York State because they disobeyed a crossing signal. You should know that the DOT, we won't rest until these achievements take place, and rather will continue to look for ways to improve the system and the safety for all users. And it's a conversation that I invite all of you who are interested in transportation to partake in, and we welcome your ideas and comments. As for sustainability, it goes without saying that Superstorm Sandy was the worst natural disaster to hit New York in decades, causing widespread devastation, including the loss of life and catastrophic flooding that damaged homes, businesses, and major transportation systems. From Long Island to Western New York, no area of the state has escaped the new normal of more frequent and more severe extreme weather events. With the governor's leadership and to better protect New Yorkers from future extreme weather, the department is administering a program to replace or retrofit more than 100 scour-critical and flood-prone bridges across New York State. In addition to addressing bridges that are vulnerable to scour, the program will ensure critical ingress and egress for response and recovery efforts, integrate resiliency planning, protection, and development approaches into economic development decisions that help strengthen local communities. We're also working collaboratively with Northeast states and the Transportation Climate Initiative, TCI, which is supported through the Georgetown Climate Center on initiatives to identify and develop policies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector. And just 2 weeks ago, I was part of an 8-state group that met in Tarrytown on this very subject. The collaboration is consistent with the governor's commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by the year 2030 and 80% by 2050. My commitment to sustainability is now always ingrained in every project and plan that we construct. During my tenure as mayor, I implemented sustainability policies and projects that resulted in our city being named the nation's 17th greenest by Popular Science magazine. We retrofitted buildings and equipment to reduce our energy costs, built the world's 3rd largest drinking water tanks, all powered by solar and microturbines to reduce operating costs and O&M, changed our signalization systems and municipal lighting to LED, which of course reduced our costs, but also greatly reduced our maintenance cost as well, and just to name a few. But by working collaboratively with environmental firms, engineering firms in particular, and regional stakeholders, we expanded our region's footprint and became a leader in the sustainability effort nationally. And I want to let you know that I bring that same commitment and passion here to the Department of Transportation. So to further our sustainability efforts, we are actively engaged in incorporating the Complete Streets principles in our program designs. We're a core sponsor of the New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program, which is accelerating the integration of advanced electrical vehicle technologies in the commercial truck and bus sectors. We're also actively engaged in the Charge New York initiative. It's an initiative to build a self-sustaining market for plug-in electrical vehicles, or PEVs, with a goal of establishing 3,000 PEVs charging stations by the year 2018. We're also part of the multi-state zero-emission vehicle and fuel technologies task force, charged with developing policies and strategies to increase the number of these vehicles on the road, and we'll be doing that at the Department of Transportation as well. I'm also very excited about another new idea that we're pursuing, the New York State Transportation Solar Initiative. Together with the State Thruway Authority, we're identifying areas along our transportation systems to install solar facilities. The goal is to build nearly 20 megawatt direct current facilities across the state capable of generating approximately 20 million kilowatts per year. This would be equivalent to a reduction of approximately 19 million vehicle miles traveled annually. Think about that and the emissions that would be saved. It also will go a long way in reducing taxpayers' cost for these facilities as well. You know, I'm very confident that New York's unique, diverse, and extensive exploration of clean fuel options will position our state as a leader in the energy-efficient transportation world. And finally, I don't want to give short shrift to the significant investments the state makes in public transportation, rail and bicycle pedestrian programs as well. Our extensive public transportation network, particularly here in the metropolitan region, helps maintain New York's position as the state with the lowest consumption of motor fuel per capita in the nation. We're the lowest in the nation here in New York State. It's made possible really through unparalleled state support. New York provides $5 billion annually in operating assistance to transit systems statewide, more than 46 other states combined. Think about that. More than 46 other states combined, we spend more. Each year, these services provide more than 4 billion passenger trips, accounting for 1 out of every 3 public transportation trip in the nation. Intercity passenger rail travel in the state is significant. Approximately 1.5 million riders each year use Amtrak's state-supported Empire and Adirondack services. Penn Station here in the city is the nation's busiest rail station. More than 8 million passengers pass through Penn Station every year using Amtrak's Northeast Corridor services. We're engaged in several efforts to improve our passenger rail corridors continually and to continue the development of world-class passenger rail service upstate. The state is making strategic investments in capacity along the Empire Corridor West, including Albany and Syracuse, and constructing new stations in Niagara Falls, Schenectady, and Rochester. In addition, every year, more than 68 million tons of freight moves across 4,100 miles of rail, and more than 150 million tons of freight pass through our port authorities, such as the Port Authority of New York, Ogdensburg, Buffalo, and Albany, to name a few. And if you think about it, otherwise, all of those goods would be delivered by truck. That's a lot more supply on a system that benefits from having a strong rail industry. And we're making major investments to upgrade that freight, rail, and port infrastructure, including $130 million in this year's new capital plan as well. The department is making a concentrated effort to provide safe bicycle and pedestrian accommodations connected where possible to housing, trail networks, and public transportation. Again, being smart about where we're going to spend your money so that it connects and helps grow local communities and provides safe opportunities for people to be more mobile. Increased bicycle and pedestrian travel is a critical tool in improving energy efficiency and independence. Several cities have introduced bike share programs, like here in New York City, of course, Buffalo, and Ithaca in upstate. And to help facilitate this mode of travel, the department is investing more than $25 million annually in non-motorized transportation alternatives. New York also supports approximately 3,000 miles of signed bike routes and approximately 5,000 miles of trails and byways. So, in closing, while there's no doubt we all have our challenges ahead, New York and the Department of Transportation continue to build on our success. You should please know that I am personally committed to guiding this department so that it plays a central role in our state's economic expansion, empowers ingenuity and innovation, and demonstrates the positive impact that effective and responsive government agencies can bring to the lives of our constituents. Thanks for having me. Good morning.